I'm going to introduce someone who does so much serving as well as so much listening. She does a lot of behind the scenes. She works with our creche kids, and again, someone who just has a heart to get things done. And so I would like everyone to give a warm applaud to Rhonda Weber.
Thank you, Chris. I remembered I've got to go up the stairs. Good morning, everyone. Well, really, I hope you're taking notes this morning.
Yeah.
We've had Dan, Pastor Walter and Anne, and then we've had Deb. How amazing was that? So much this morning. So much. So, relationships, making friends, caring about each other. I haven't given you this scripture, whoever's up there this morning. Abby, sorry, how could I forget the beautiful Abby was on this morning. Let's give Abby a clap. Don't you hate it when you can't find a scripture? So I'm just going to read a scripture first of all. Basically, foundation one for this series, John 13:35. You will know them by their love for one another. And it says, your love for one another will prove to the world that you are my disciples. Will prove to the world that you are my disciples. I need to look at the clock. Okay. It's, every day, every moment, wherever we are ambassadors for Christ. We are Christ. We are Jesus in the world. And we are speaking for him. Do you think about that? We're speaking for him. We're his hands and feet. We're also listening for him. We're put there to be Jesus to people. So as we serve, as we listen, as we encourage, whatever it is we're doing, we are Jesus in people's lives. That's the truth of being a Christian. So Pastor Brian talked about skills in making friends and establishing relationships. He mentioned this word last week, skills. And as Deb mentioned, we've been asked to speak about particular things. And I've been asked to talk about listening. Loving people through listening. The biggest factor in relationship breakdown is communication, or lack of it, or miscommunication. Studies have proven that time after time, whether it's a friend relationship, whether it's a marriage relationship, whether it's a business relationship, whatever kind of relationship it is, the breakdown usually happens because of lack of communication or lack of understanding. Usually because we don't really listen to each other. And that's what a counsellor does when they have a couple of people together. They help people hear each other. They help people really hear each other. So in our relationships, to have a friend, you need to be a friend. Did you hear that profound statement? To have a friend, you need to be a friend. And people do not feel valued when they feel they're not heard. A complaint I've heard many times in talking with people is he, she, they didn't listen to me. I felt I was not heard. People feel valued when we really listen. And Deb talked about loving like Jesus. How did Jesus listen? Jesus did a lot of talking. He did a lot of preaching. He did a lot of speaking. But how did Jesus actually listen? As I share some thoughts, I'm not going to read the scriptures because I've only got 10 minutes, and that's a challenge for me this morning. And I'm watching the clock. He listened. I've just got three or four things here that I noted as I was thinking about how Jesus listened. He listened to understand. For example, the woman who came to the well, the Samaritan lady. This is in John 4, the story, if you want to look it up and read it. She was a lady who was ostracised. She was a lady who came to the well at quite a different time to the day, so she wouldn't be seen by anybody because nobody would be there at this time of the day. But Jesus was. And he listened to her. And the woman went away and her life was changed. This man really heard who she was. He really listened to who she was. And she went away a changed woman. And as a result of that, a whole heap of other people got changed because Jesus really listened. So he listened to understand what was in this woman's life. He also listened to identify needs. If you notice when Jesus was healing people, we have lots of stories in the Bible about Jesus healing people. He would ask them, "What do you want? What can I do for you? How can I help you?" Simple questions, not you need this or you need that, but what can I do for you? So he listened to understand. He listened to know how he could help, to identify needs. He listened and he did not judge. He listened and he didn't make judgments. For example, again, the lady who was caught in adultery. Can you imagine all these men accusing her? Basically, she would have been naked, and they're making accusations to her about what she's done. They've judged her, condemned her, she's dead, according to them. But Jesus listened and he didn't judge. He listened and then he said, "Go and sin no more." So he supported her to make changes in her life. He didn't listen and condemn. He listened to support and help her grow. He also listened in order to challenge and encourage people to grow. So here's some ways Jesus listened. He listened to understand. He listened to identify needs. He listened and he didn't judge. And he listened to help people grow, to challenge, to help people grow. And in James 1:19, understand this, my dear brothers and sisters, you must be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to get angry. I wonder why it says slow to get angry. I've seen lots of conversations where people don't listen to each other, and how does it finish up? It finishes up in anger. It finishes up in frustration. It finishes up in loud shouting voices because people are not listening to one another. So be quick to listen. That's what we're focusing on here. So I Googled, what does listening really mean? And skillsyouneed.com says, listening is not the same as hearing. We hear stuff all the time. Hearing refers to the sounds that enter your ears. It's a physical process that, provided you do not have any hearing problems, don't laugh, happens automatically. I've developed some hearing problems and I often find myself saying, "Excuse me, what did you say?" Anyway, part of getting old, I guess. Listening, however, requires more than that. It requires focus and concentrated effort, both mental and sometimes physical as well. Listening means paying attention, not only to the story, but how it's told. The use of language and voice, and how the other person uses his or her body. Your ability to listen effectively depends on the degree to which you perceive and understand the message. Your ability to listen effectively depends on your ability to really understand the message. So, listening is not something that just happens. That is hearing. We hear stuff all the time. If you stop to really listen, you go outside and stop to really listen, you hear all sorts of sounds. So, listening is not something that just happens. Listening is an active process. This is a process we enter into in which a conscious decision is made to listen and understand the messages of the speaker. Deb talked about making a choice. We make a choice to listen. Sometimes it's not convenient. I'm going to use some of Deb's points here because it's the same of loving people, whether it's serving, listening, whatever it's doing. Sometimes it's not convenient. It costs us time. It costs us energy. We need to choose to do this sometimes, and we need to go beyond. And it helps if we smile. And we should be displaying those fruits of the Spirit, remember, so that they will know that you are His disciples. So some simple things for us to work on. And in this day of technology, we need to focus on those things to work on. Have you ever been having a conversation with somebody and you're trying to talk to them and you're saying something to them and da-da-da-da-da-da-da and da-da-da-da-da. Have you ever had one of those conversations? You know, you're saying something and they go, what'd you say? What'd you say? You see it time and time again. So I want to remind you people, if you're listening, this thing needs to go away. Not just our phones. Constant distractions are part of our world. They're everywhere. So you need to choose to listen. Make a choice and get into a position where you're actually listening. So give attention, just like I demonstrated. Give attention to the person. Look at them. Sit, stand as if you're actually giving them attention. These are simple things, but so often they don't happen. We need to be thinking about them and giving attention to them. So engage with the person. Now here's a really, really important one. Be present with the person. Be present with them. Not off thinking about your own stuff, not off, oh, I've got to do that job. Be present with them. You're giving them your attention physically and mentally. So your mind is focused. Not telling your story. You know, we want to jump in and tell a better story than they're telling us. Not interrupting. Not putting words in the other person's mouth. Some people are really quick thinkers, and not everybody is. And often when we're listening to people for stuff that's in their world, they're struggling to express what's happening to them. And we want to jump in and say this, and this. Don't interrupt people. Don't put words in people's mouths. Don't point score. Not anticipating what you want to say. Proverbs 17:27 says this in the passage. Can you bridle your tongue when your heart is under pressure? Can you bridle your tongue when your heart is under pressure? And so often, when you're listening, you're wanting to say something. I get into trouble all the time at our staff meetings for interrupting. So I have to practice this to people. I'm listening to myself here as well. So we need to be able to stop. To really listen means to give the other person undivided attention without making judgments. Asking simple questions to help you understand if you are not quite sure what was said or meant. So, my homework to you is practice your listening skills next time you're having a conversation. Are you really listening? Are you paying attention? Have you got your phone in your pocket? Are you present with the person? All those things are really important. And I just want to finish with what Pastor Ann started with. Your love is like an overflowing river, overflowing its banks with kindness. Listening is part of your kindness and your love and making friends and relationships.